Hello and welcome to Never Thought to Ask the Senior Narratives, the podcast where I interview our newly hatched senior citizens and ask them some not so serious questions about their journey so far, and hopefully get some fun stories about the things that we, of course, never thought to ask. I'm sitting here with Joe Kaye. Good afternoon, Joe. How are you tonight?
Good afternoon, Tane. I'm great.
First of all, thank you for being a guest on the show, and thank you for having me in your home. I'm looking forward to what stories can be told today while we cover family, growing up, school, work, maybe a bit of sport, and a few fun questions, and then we'll wrap it all up with a bit of then and now, and then our special final question. Joe, are you ready?
Definitely.
Alrighty. Take us through the beginning. Where were you born? Parents?
Born in Rotorua in New Zealand. Born on the 16th of October 1956. My parents are Joe Kaye, which originates from the Cook Islands, Rarotonga. And my mum was Julie Takiari, originated from Rakanui out of Kawhia. And really she was brought up with her dad down the east coast at Te Whanau Apanui at Maraenui.
Do you have any children, grandkids?
Yeah, one child. My only daughter is Joe Kaye, and she was born in 88. So she was born in all the eights. We're supposed to be lucky, but we're still living to this day.
Okay, now let's delve into that family and growing up section. The first question here is, do you recall your earliest memory?
Recall all of them. Many memories. Many families, many cousins. Everything.
Growing up as a kid, did you have any nicknames?
My nickname is Joe Kaye.
Joe Kaye. The one, the only nickname. Next up is childhood friends. Are you still in touch with any of them?
No, but I still see a few of them around. Down on the Gold Coast, I've bumped into one or two down there. But through school, not much of today.
Coming up as a kid, did you have a favourite family member?
Wow. I can't really put on to a favourite family member, but in my time, the ones I looked up to as a baby and a child is my dad's brother, Uncle Tommy, and my mum's brother, Uncle Bob Takiari. So,
awesome, brother.
Yes, they're my two.
A lot of families have traditions. What are some that you have or had in your family?
I've been heavily brought up in the Cook Island culture way. Even till today, right now, I still am involved in the Cook Island culture because our beliefs coming off the Mangayan way is all about, we have a motto that we live by, and it's, if you want what the papa have, you must work. And that's been one of my biggest educational areas. My dad always taught us to get through the life of the world, it's about education. So with the Mangayan philosophy of whatever the papa want, we've rechanged it in our family. You must educate.
Moving on to your schooling life now. Where did you first go to school? Take us on a walk through your school life.
School life was in Rotorua, Western Heights, where we were sort of born and bred in the same area. 1961, first attended Primer 1 into Western Heights Primary. Spent 5 years there, then we moved into Selwyn Heights Primary, which was just a new school that opened in our area. Went through there until intermediate stage, where we then moved into 1968. We moved into Sunset Intermediate, which was over in the Sunset area. And in 1969, Kaitau Intermediate was opened in Western Heights. And in 1970, after Form 2, then attended my high school years at Western Heights High School.
How were you as a student? Did you have a favourite subject?
My favourite subject, and it is still favourite today, is about numbers. So maths was my favourite.
Did you ever get into trouble much at school?
Yes. Trouble wasn't instilled in us because of our discipline we had to live by. It was a lot about just following. Being connected with always someone better than you and want to be like them. And that's where we get instilled. Now, the biggest part I found in school times, it was trying to have something we never had, because we weren't a rich family. And that was a very, not broke, but a lot different to what the Pākehās had, and we didn't.
Every school had one. Who was the meanest teacher that you encountered during your school life?
The meanest teacher I've ever encountered would be Mr. Lake. Mr. Lake was the head principal of Western Heights High School back in our time, and when I look back, he ran a very disciplined high school. There was no movement to be fooled with. So when he walked, we stood.
Did you have any mentors at that time? People that you held in high regard? Or someone you may have learnt the most from at that time?
Few teachers, back in the primary days. Mrs. Collins was a very famous teacher. She sort of was a very hard teacher, but also a mentor you would appreciate in her time. Because there was an area in the school times where everybody wanted to sit in the back of the room. But there's a group of us that always went right up to the front. So sitting at the front of the room, we sort of got spoilt to the ones at the back.
Yeah. That's awesome. Did you have much of a sport career at this time?
In our day, it was all about rugby union.
Rugby, yeah.
Western Heights Park Road. We had our own rugby union club, Western Heights. We had our own park. And also in the schools, we played paddle tennis, all those sort of things. And get home late playing bull rush and games and things like that. So it was all about playing more than anything.
Do you have any personal achievements at this time that you found satisfying, no matter how insignificant?
If there was at the time, probably didn't know of it. But looking back, it was about mathematics had become a core in my life.
Definitely.
Metalwork, doing things mechanically, having neighbours that taught you how to build trolleys and go down the hill and take rubbish bags when they got the delivery up into the mountain, Mount Nungata. So they were very educational because having neighbours like Graham Chapman and all those that would help us build our trolleys, and the achievements out of it, with my siblings and that, when they grew up and didn't use their pram, we got to reuse the wheels.
Yeah. Make another one.
The trolley.
We're going to move now into the work and employment section. Now, take us on a journey through all your different workplaces that you've been through.
Work in our family was a area where we were instilled by my dad. He was a hard toiler. He would work 3 jobs to keep food on the table.
Man.
Now, being around a sawmill life as we were with pine milling, we all became instilled in that life. And weekends going down, and my dad used to get different contracts cleaning the mill, so we'll all end up down there because we live quite close. We would all, at different stages, from the age of 9, be really instilled into that sawmill life. Because my dad would say, if you're not going to help, how can you eat? So we lived that life in the sawmill, pine milling. Every one of us, out of all my 7 siblings that lived in Rotorua, we all went through that life. And I ended up, when we were young, 17, all we wanted to do was get out of home, and move. So we ended up, myself, still going to high school. We had a very great friend of ours, Jack Plowman, who offered me a job during Christmas. I would have been Form 4 in the high school, Form 5, and what happened was I ended up doing a Christmas stint with him in delivering homestyle bakery bread to the surrounding areas of Rotorua in our suburb. Now, out of that, with Jack and homestyle bakeries, it was an area where 4 brothers, my other 3 brothers, we all ended up working through the contract with Jack Plowman and homestyle bakeries.
Wow.
Out of that, working in the bakeries and in our Polynesian and our Māori life, bread was an essential item. So we were able to feed many of our cousins and families free bread. We would bring home trays and crates of bread, and we'll ring the family up, especially my master's family, and they'll come and get their bread for their lunches, donuts, Sally Lums, all that type of thing. And we did that right through our life of homestyle bakeries, and that went through a generation of over 10 years.
Wow.
So when I left home in 1974, I ventured down to Wellington under the trade training pre-employment scheme that Māori Affairs had running. Then my brother took over from the bakery. Then when he left to go into the New Zealand Navy, then the other brother jumped in. So when he left to go into New Zealand Post Office and New Zealand Police, then the other brother got in. So we've been around a family of giving, and we still do that today.
And it well shows. What was your worst job out of all of that?
There's no worst job, because each job was long term that I stuck with. You know, when I left into the pre-employment trade training scheme down to Wellington, we learned to survive. A lot of young ones, you know, we're all young. You know, we all had friends and we developed friendships, but they come off farms like the Tuhoi people, the coast people. You know, we all came together and we lived in the camp-style dorms. You know, pairing up with someone you never ever knew, never met. You know, my block was 244 in Trentham Camp. And my first job through the trade training was at Woburn Workshops. And like our philosophy was about education. So I started there as a turner. There weren't fitters and turners in our time. At the railways, you either was a turner or you were a fitter. So I loved metalwork, so turning was my forte. And then during this time, I was still looking, and I stumbled across a apprenticeship that was advertised in the Wellington Courier Mail for an apprentice mechanic. So I applied and got the interview, and I got my apprenticeship as a motor mechanic.
Nice.
With Odlin's Petone. And so I served my time as a mechanic. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a great journey in Wellington in the camp. But, you know, we got into the alcohol, the partying, you know, and missing work and
all
this
that,
and that.
all that freedom away from home.
You know, and then my mum makes a call to come home. And that was 1979. I decided it was time to go home. So my dad come down and got me. Went home, and I ended up going to Gordington with the Hanson brothers, Owen Hanson had a workshop there, so I worked for him for a few months. And then, again, going from Gordington back to Rotorua every weekend, I ended up giving it up and just staying home in Rotorua with my mum and dad. Then my uncle come along, and in October 1979, I started with pie milling in the box factory. And I worked for them and worked my way up as a supervisor. And got to a stage where I knew every saw, every machine, and even became my dad's boss until he retired at 60. Became bosses of my own uncles who were there before me. But a position of the boss is not about being directive, it's about learning from them how to lead. And that's one of my biggest achievements in that area.
I love that.
So in 1993, I'd already had an uncle pressure me to go to Australia. So Terry and I took a trip to Australia on our way to Singapore, and I went up to have a look at the mines. Back in through Sydney, went home, and that's when I made it I'm going. So I finished up and left Australia. That decision was quite easy because where I was in pie milling at the time, it didn't give me any learning growth.
Mm.
You know, I was stagnant. My mind wasn't growth anymore, it was just stable.
Yeah.
So hence I left and came to Australia. Australia at the first was quite a daunting experience because coming in Australia, you never seen so many blondes, you never seen, and coming by yourself was great temptation because coming through that era of time, Tim Morrison, Jake the Muss movie had made an impact in Australia.
Mm.
So being a Kiwi and having the strong accent as we have, you became a magnet. So I went up to Mount Isa, bumped in a few people from my hometown, and started working in the Mount Isa mines. So, you know, when I left the mines in 2002, I came down to Brisbane and started a job with company Tires for You through WorkPack. You know, it was a great, did the interview on Thursday. I'd been out of work down here for 3 months, just resting, partying, drinking, you know, doing what we do, you know. Yeah. And it was time to get back in the workforce, and that's how WorkPack became my workplace agency that got me this job I'm currently in now. So started as a casual through WorkPack, get the hours here, get the hours there, but you know, it was about just put your head down and just do what you have to do.
Mm.
And within 2 weeks of being there, the warehouse manager at the time, branch manager, he'd come out and I was in the back of a container and he asked me, am I looking for a permanent job? And I said, yep. When do I start? He goes to me, you have to spend 3 months with the agency, otherwise they have to pay a fee. And I said to him, well, you start me on Monday and I'll ring them up and I'll finish up now with them. And that's how I got into Tires for You. Tires for You was a very laid back from what I've used to with the mining sector. So, you know, there's a bit of a change in life now through this work, through this employment opportunity. Within 6 weeks, I'd gone from a casual to being the 2IC of the warehouse.
Wow.
Within 7 months, I became the warehouse manager. And in 2021, I still hold that current position.
That's amazing. And you moved up so quick through most of those roles, through those places too. Do you have any favorite stories or pranks or funny stories that come out of any of those workplaces?
Many. In the sawmill, back in Rotorua in the pie milling, every Christmas we would have a drink up. Last day in the box factory is about clean up, get everything ready. And we start drinking, you know. In the mill, we're very heavy drinkers. We work hard, we play hard, we drink hard, we do a lot. So, you know, I became, as the head sawyer and all that, as one of the heads in the sawmill, in the box factory. We'd all fall around because we're working amongst a lot of islanders. And when you work with islanders, they're there to have fun. On this occasion, we'd just had a new guy. He wanted to learn everything. And we'd be drinking away there, and he'd come up and he'd go, how does that saw work? How does that work? You know? And everyone's watching me because they know what we can fool around. And I said, look, when you go over there, see that pedal? Yep. That's what brings the saw up. That's the start button. And I knew at the time everything had been isolated and shut down, the air had switched off. I said, what you do, you go and test it. You go, where we pull the timber through and cut it, you put your hand there, start the saw, and then you stand on that pedal and see if it works. And everybody around just panicked. They said, don't you dare listen to him. But, it's sometimes in those days when you're head sawyer or head operator, people always believe what you tell them.
Yeah. I think it's kind of a respect thing. Got to listen to your elders, and then we got to have our fun too, don't we? We're moving along to a bit of fun stuff now, Joe. Best unprepared. Give us a story of a real kick yourself moment.
Yeah, there's many, it's not kicking yourself back, it's opportunities missed.
Yes.
And there's been many opportunities missed in my time. And at the end of the day, I'll look at it, was it the right time? Was I in the right frame of mind? Was I able to take the risks?
Right.
And that's what comes. It's not about kick myself. It's just didn't have enough oomph in myself to just jump. We must learn to just jump.
Next one is, what would be your most petty crime?
When is a crime petty? You've taken from someone. They've either nurtured or they've grown or they've spent time. There's no petty. Even when our young days, going to the neighbours and pinching their peaches and apples that they'll grow and they nurture. And at night we go and take them because we got none.
Yeah.
And is that petty? Or is just that not respecting people's property that they work so hard for?
Next up, what was the last book you read?
The last book, How to Win and Influence Friends, Dale Carnegie.
Very good.
Great book.
Whack. You just got struck by lightning. And when you come to, you have superhuman abilities. What would they be?
The ability to enhance people's mindsets.
That is awesome.
The ability to show them peace, balance, freedom, growth, joy, love. That's the magical part. Because in the world we have of today, with the devastations and what they so called, we forget about the peace, the balance, the freedom that we were born with.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all too worried about the living and how to live and why to live and what for.
Everyone has a song or two that is close to their heart. Give us one or two that are near and dear to you, and perhaps why.
Well, the best one I always love and I always think about is from your upbringing through church. All things bright and wonderful, all things great and small. Lord God made them all. That's my, and that's what the world is all about. All things are great and wonderful.
What is one of the most spontaneous things you've ever done?
Spontaneous or just mad?
I'm pretty sure it's the same thing.
There was a time when I'd come back from Wellington in my apprenticeship, and we're down the coast at Maraenui. And my Uncle Bill, he'd bought this kayak. And they're setting up the line, the Kontiki line, with all these hooks for fishing. And he'd go, oh yeah, we'll take it out on the kayak. I'd never been on one, but hey, I got to do it. So we go down there, they've tied the beginning of the line in, and then on to row out in the waves down on the foreshore. Now on our foreshore of Maraenui, there's no sand, it's rocks. And you go in about 3 meters and it's a dead drop. There's nothing. So I get in this thing, they buckle me in, get all this padding around the kayak. And then I get pushed into the wave and it goes over.
Oh.
And I'm under this kayak. What the heck? I've gone and flipped. So I get out of this kayak, surface, go back to shore. And all my uncle was worrying about his kayak. And I said, it can stay there. I'm out of here. Because everyone on the shore is laughing.
We'll now move into our then and now section. What is something from our past eras that they should bring back?
I don't believe they should bring anything back from the past. They should put in place what we learnt from the past. And a lot of that is about what do we educate today? In our education, as I've said, it was about work, education. But the most important about it in my whole career, it's about having respect. It's about the people. It's about the community. We're too much involved about worrying how to live. We're too much worrying about the noise. Cats have to live. Do they worry? Ants live. Do they worry? Plants live and die. Respect is one of my biggest things. To be respected, you must respect yourself first. And that is an area that we should instill. And it's not from the past. Our teachings from the past have so many different views into different childhoods, into different that. But all I ask is let's build respect within ourselves so we can gift it out.
Yes, sir. Have you ever broken a habit? What was it, and what were the challenges you faced?
That question is a touching question because it's an area where breaking habits are very hard to do, but when you have the right purpose and why the habit needs to go, it doesn't make it easy, but it gives you a better vision. The habit I broke was being a smoker in 1988. When my daughter was born, 8/8/88, Terry, that's the day I said I won't smoke again. The purpose behind it was, for every smoke I didn't smoke, I could spend it on her and we could travel and we could do this together.
That's amazing.
So we did. I gave up smoking and took my daughter back to the Cook Islands, back right to Mangaya, because she hadn't been there. That was her reward, because I sacrificed a habit to give her life. Went to Singapore, came to Australia, so we've been many places. Even today, I still don't smoke because I can still give to her. Whether it's a drink, whether it's a meal, it never goes away.
What is something, a trend, a behaviour that you just don't see the appeal to? What's something you just don't grasp the concept of?
I don't grasp the concept when people say money is the evil of all things. When we look at the reality of it, money is not the evil. It's the love of money that's evil. So that's a concept. Money is earned to be free, not greed. So it's the love of money that's evil, not the money.
If you could spend a day with someone, alive or not, fictional or true, who would it be and why?
Very hard question. The person I'd like to spend a day with would be Jesus, because we live his way, we're guided by his way, but I never saw him. Jesus is a person. Is it fictional or is it fact? And as we believe, seeing is believing. So that's the person I would say. Because all my dad I've spent with, my mum, it's not to relive it, it's to look ahead.
Very nice. Do you have a bucket list, and have you ticked off anything yet?
A bucket list, to me, where I'm going through at the moment, is what would you like in your scenario of life? Bucket list can be what is challenging, what is achievable. You know, my bucket list that I really, really keep ahead is to be able to live on this earth as long as I can with my baby. That's the only bucket list I can never dream. When it's my time, unfortunately, one of us is going to suffer.
Now we come to the final question. Being a part of this podcast, you now have an opportunity to leave behind a recording for your future generations. What important knowledge or wisdom would you pass on to them?
First of all, which is very important, is just be you. Forget about the noise, because you need to make the loudest noise you can, because it drowns out all their sorrow, not your sorrows. Strive and thrive to be the best in your own self and not others. Because at the end of the day, it's you that leaves the legacy. And the meaning I say that is let every generation after celebrate you.
This has been Never Thought to Ask the Senior Narratives. I've been sitting here with Joe Kaye. Joe, thank you very much for coming on the show. You've given us great insight on your journey so far, and I wish you well on the rest of your journey. This is Tane Hall, signing off. Talk to you guys soon.